The world of video game development is an extraordinarily tough one, where companies can spend years and years working on a game only for it to be critically reviled and flop commercially. So it's little surprise that most AAA games play things super safe. But sometimes it's clear as day that a game is doomed to fail long before it's even hit the market. And that's unfortunately absolutely the case with this lot. Sure, there's every possibility that some of these games defy expectations and prove themselves to be a hit, but you probably want to keep your hype levels in check. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 upcoming video games that are already doomed. Number 10, Fair Games. Fair Games, assuming that $sign is like Kesha's $sign back in the day, is part of Sony's ongoing effort to aggressively break into the live service multiplayer space, a AAA competitive heist game in which players team up to steal from the ultra-wealthy. It's been the better part of 2 years since the game's CGI reveal trailer dropped, and we haven't seen a sliver of actual gameplay, which is honestly the least concerning thing about Fair Games. Even if you can forgive Fair Games' immediately off-putting title and generic aesthetic, Sony's recent live service bust with Concord reaffirms the difficulty of making waves in this really crowded space. A niche where even a heist game as recognizable as Payday 3 ended up flopping. While a barnstorming gameplay reveal could definitely shift general perception of the game, at present there's little but overpowering skepticism of its ability to be anything more than another live service flop. Number 9, Dune Awakening. The world of Frank Herbert's sci-fi opus Dune seems like the perfect fit for the MMORPG treatment, especially with the IP enjoying greater popularity than ever due to Dennis's 2 recent blockbuster movie adaptations. I don't know how to say his name. I'm so sorry. Put the phonetics in the comments for me. Villeneuve. As we know, though, the MMO space is an incredibly tricky one to crack, and little we've seen so far suggests that the developer Funcom, best known for a glut of so-so MMOs such as Conan Exiles, Age of Conan, Anarchy Online, and The Secret World, and way back in the day, my favorite game, The Longest Journey, but we're talking the 90s there almost, it's questionable that Funcom of now has the chops to make Dune Awakening a mega hit. Between the fairly cheap-looking visuals and apparent emphasis on combat over exploring the world of Arrakis, it's tough not to feel that a property as rich as Dune deserves so much better. On the plus side, Funcom do have a history of supporting their MMOs long term, even if they're not very good, so it's probably not going to be shut down within a year. Number 8, Crazy Taxi Reboot. There was so much initial excitement when Sega announced that a new Crazy Taxi game was in development in 2023, given that more than 20 years have passed since the last full-fat entry into the cult classic racing franchise. But last year, word got out that new Crazy Taxi is being designed as a AAA open-world multiplayer game. One of those, again. And that instantly left many fans feeling deflated and skeptical about the project. After all, Crazy Taxi became popular due to its brilliant simplicity, and trying to reinvent it as a presumably live service blockbuster title, like everybody is, sounds like Sega trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. That isn't to say that Crazy Taxi can't work as an experience akin to, say, Burnout Paradise, but the odds are certainly stacked deep that Sega are biting off more than they can chew with this one. Number 7, Marathon. In 2023, original Destiny developer Bungie announced that their new game would be a reboot of their own classic sci-fi shooter, Marathon. While certainly not an inherently bad idea as games go, most initial enthusiasm swiftly evaporated once the developer confirmed it would be a sci-fi PvP extraction shooter. Given that the extraction shooter genre already feels wildly oversaturated and many large budget live service titles are struggling to find their footing at present, what exactly is Marathon bringing to that crowded table? Couple all that with the recent report from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier that internal sentiment on the game is, quote, not great, as well as Bungie laying off 220 staff members last year, it's easy to believe that Marathon is another Me Too multiplayer shooter that's destined to flop at launch. Everybody wants this to be the next Helldivers 2, don't get us wrong, but it's looking far more likely to be the new Concord. Number 6, Arc 2. It's very telling that the Arc subreddit is jam-packed with posts that say, "Where the hell is Arc 2?" given that the sequel to 2017's hit survival game Ark Survival Evolved was announced at the Game Awards of 2020, with Vin Diesel and Ali Carvalho roped in to star. Though originally set for a 2023 launch, Arc 2 was ultimately rescheduled to launch in early access by late 2024. However, it also ended up missing that date with no word from developer studio Wildcard, with the current release on Steam simply listed as TBA. At this point, a bunch of fans are convinced that Arc 2 has become vaporware and that it's never actually going to be released, especially with the developer still putting out content for the Ark remaster Survival Ascended. There comes a point where a game takes long enough to come out that large swaths of the fan base grow frustrated with waiting and even, fair enough, lose interest. Number 5, Star Wars Eclipse. At the 2021 Game Awards, Star Wars Eclipse was announced, a collaboration between Lucasfilm and developer Quantic Dream, who of course did Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, and the one with the ghost. And Star Wars Eclipse certainly sounded intriguing on paper. With its High Republic era setting, that's 200 years before The Phantom Menace, and Quantic Dream's cinematic pedigree, it was easy to be excited. Yet more than 3 years after Eclipse's reveal, we've had no substantial follow-up or even a single shred of gameplay. Rumors even swirled recently that the game had quietly been cancelled, though Quantic Dream firmly denied this. All the same, the apparent lack of momentum has been further stymied by the departure of the game's lead writer, Adam Williams, who left last summer. Given that Eclipse is said to be a major departure for Quantic Dream, opting for a more action-forward style, it's entirely possible that they've simply struggled to move away from their on-rails interactive drama mode of gameplay. You know, like combat, where you don't just press a square a bunch of times. On top of that, there's the recent accusations of hostile workplace practices at the company, and a report indicating we probably won't see Eclipse until, get this, 2027. Then again, perhaps Quantic Dream realized that they announced the game way too early, and they're now laying low until they have something worthwhile to show off. Here's hoping anyway. Number 4, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. The long-awaited sequel to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines started development in 2016 and was originally intended to release in March of 2020. But almost 5 years later, the action RPG is still not out. Development has been anything but smooth, which you'd know if you heard any headlines about it. Numerous key members of the dev team have exited at various points, and that's before original developer Hardsuit Labs were dismissed from the project in 2021, and eventually replaced with the Chinese Room, who did Dear Esther, Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, and Still Wakes the Deep. What we've seen of the game so far is pretty rough, both aesthetically and mechanically, and given that the Chinese Room has never worked on a title of this scale before, it doesn't paint the most encouraging picture going forward. Given many fans are decrying the state of the game and even loudly announcing their disinterest online, it'd be an absolute shocker if this one turned out to be either a critical or a commercial hit, let alone both. But if you want to hope, go hope. I hope it's good for you. Number 3, Borderlands 4. Though Borderlands is undeniably one of the most recognizable video game IP to emerge over the last 15 years, it's also fair to say that the franchise feels like it's stuck in a rut at present. Borderlands 3 proved relatively divisive among the fan base, especially where its grating humor was concerned, and the recent Borderlands film was a colossal flop, possibly suggesting a growing disinterest in the overall brand, or a steep dip in quality for the overall brand. Borderlands 4 was officially announced last summer amid much hand-wringing from fans as to whether the series' formulaic gameplay and style of comedy would still fly with players in 2025. Now, in fairness, Borderlands 4's narrative director Sam Winkler did recently insist that the game would feature less toilet humor than its predecessor, which got old for even fans of toilet humor very quickly. But the first gameplay trailer for the game still indicated it's basically same old business as usual for an IP that's feeling pretty crusty right now? Will those who gravitated towards Borderlands in 2009 still have the stomach for its in-your-face writing and been there, done that gameplay in 2025? It's just tough to be excited about it, even if it probably won't be awful. Number 2, System Shock 3. There's no denying there is a ravenous hunger for a third entry into the legendary System Shock franchise. And indeed, System Shock 3 was first announced all the way back in 2015, an entire decade ago. Oh my gosh, we're getting old. Series creator Warren Spector also confirmed to be heading up development, but word went quiet in the years that followed, until an admittedly eye-popping gameplay trailer dropped in 2019. But we basically heard nothing good about it since. By 2020, the dev team had been laid off and development was said to be critically behind. And that's before Tencent acquired the rights to the game and took control of production. Even with 2023 System Shock Remake being well received, the third game simply doesn't seem to be a priority for Tencent, who many fans believe have quietly cancelled the game without informing fans. Either way, with so much behind-the-scenes turmoil, it's tough to believe that a quality threequel that lives up to its predecessors will actually make it to market. Also, personally, given it's Tencent, it will probably be another multiplayer online service game. Bummer. Number 1, Star Citizen. It admittedly seems a tad absurd to describe Star Citizen as already doomed, both given that the ambitious sci-fi epic was first announced back in 2012 and as of last November has amassed, get this, $750 million in funding. Yet such a protracted production period has led to extensive criticism of developer Cloud Imperium Games, with many fans convinced that the scope of the project has grown beyond their control, while others have outright dismissed it as a scam. A recent report noted that the developer is now spending upwards of $100 million per year on Star Citizen, seeming to suggest an unstable business model even with the game's enormous budget. Put simply, the money is surely going to run out eventually. Between this, reports about intense crunch periods, and recent layoffs at the studio, it's really tough to see a successful path forward for a game that's already left so many people jaded.